The last three videos were concerned with Sutras 26 to 34, and given that each one from 27 onwards began with a conjunction, I ended each one with a semicolon, suggesting that they should all be regarded as a totality. They're all pointing us to the one end. And in this video I'm going to look over them again in a little more detail. And instead of using numbers to refer to the sutras, I'll simply refer to Sutra 26 as the Sun Sutra, the next one is the Moon Sutra, the next one is the Pole Star Sutra, then we've got the Navel Chakra Sutra, the Throat Sutra, the Tortoise Nadi Sutra, and then the Light Sutra, the Insight Sutra, and Sutra 34 are referred to as the Heart Sutra. I think that's easier than using the numbers. So what's the perspective here? The perspective here is Samadhi. Now the stereotype picture of Samadhi is the yogi sitting in meditative bliss, not even wanting to move for the sake of hunger and thirst, and so on. But this isn't what samyama is about. Samyama includes samadhi. It includes samadhi on a practical level. It is active samadhi. Samadhi is not passive, it is active. Each of these sutras is about samyama, which includes samadhi. It's directing the state of samadhi to all those factors which might undermine the samadhi. The first group of sutras, the Sun, Moon and Pole Star Sutras, are concerned with the physical world. There are things which happen in the physical world which can disturb our samadhi, and so we consider them within the context of samyama, and we in turn undermine them. The next three sutras, the Navel Chakra Sutra, the Throat Sutra and the Tortoise Nadi Sutra, are concerned with feelings and emotions, sensations, which we normally associate with the body. And the last three sutras, Sutras 32 to 34, the Light Sutra, the Insight Sutra and the Heart Sutra, are concerned with thoughts, the thoughts which distract us, which detract us from samadhi. And at the end of each group of sutras, of three sutras, we're directed to stillness. And to be quite clear of our understanding and interpretation of these sutras, we should look at the one before, Sutra 25. Sutra 25 says, by giving up the inclination to follow the light, there is the appropriate attitude to that which is subtly hidden and distant. And I also relate this one to Sutra 21, which talks about the power of the eye being suspended. This is the power of the senses. Now, just as each group of three sutras directed us to a centre or an axis of stillness, there's also a correspondence between the first sutra of each group, the second sutra of each group, and the third sutra of each group. So the first sutra was the Sun Sutra. By turning samyama towards the sun, which is awareness, we get the proper attitude towards the world. That's all physical things. This corresponds to the sutra on the navel chakra, which is also known as the solar plexus. There's a chapter here from the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. This is a text from China, written down about 2.5 millennia ago, And I'm going to read this chapter because it's very much in the same spirit of the sutras that we're looking at the moment. The 5 colours make man's eyes blind. The 5 notes make his ears deaf. The 5 tastes injure his palate. So this is about cutting off from the senses, which Sutras 21 and 25 were indicating. Riding and hunting make his mind go wild with excitement. Now what's the riding and hunting here? It's the same as that which is subtly hidden and distant. It's about thirst and hunger, the thirst for knowledge and the hunger for experience. That's what makes the mind go wild. I live quite near the grave of Anne Bronte. She's one of the Bronte sisters, much less known than Charlotte and Emily. And there's a beautiful picture of hers of the romantic heroine standing on the cliff, gazing towards further shores, longing for what is subtly hidden and distant. It's a beautiful image, but the yogi is not concerned with being elsewhere. The yogi is concerned with being in the here and now. Goods hard to come by serve to hinder his progress, and that's the urge to reach out there for a sense of completion. But we've got the appropriate attitude to the world so we don't fall into it. But here's the important line. Hence the sage is for the belly, not for the eye. Therefore he discards the one and takes the other. So the sage is for the belly, not for the eye. And this leads us to the Light Sutra, the light in the head, gives us the appropriate attitude to the vision of the perfected ones. And that's the realization that it's all happening here. Light is the light of awareness. The Moon Sutra gives us the appropriate attitude to the constellations. These are the constructions of the mind. All the patterns that we perceive are created by the cognitive aspect of consciousness. This corresponds to the Throat Sutra. And traditionally this is about overcoming hunger and thirst. But in the context here, it's about the hunger for experience and the thirst for knowledge, the thirst for understanding. We don't get caught up in that. So we've got the appropriate attitude to hunger and thirst. And this corresponds to samyama on the faculty of direct insight, which gives us the appropriate attitude to everything. This is when we are witness to the direct experiencing, rather than ideas about experiencing or cognitive constructs of the mind. So this is the attitude, the appropriate attitude to everything, to come back to the direct experiencing. And now we come to the third one in each group, the Pole Star Sutra. The Pole Star is that around which the whole celestial sphere revolves, but does not move itself. So this is the appropriate attitude to the course of the Pole Star. In the midst of everything that's happening, in the midst of all movement, all activity, we find our axis of stillness. And that's what we come back to. And this corresponds to the sutra on the tortoise nadi. Now, previously I say, in order to understand Patanjali, we take for our cue the direct experiencing and the context of the Yoga Sutras themselves. But the tortoise nadi, the Kurma nadi, is something that we have to do a bit of research on. And there's a wonderful story on the second avatar of Vishnu, which is when Vishnu appeared as a giant tortoise. And the reason for this was that the gods had fallen from grace. They'd lost their powers. They wanted to regain their immortality. And in order to do this, they had to churn the ocean of milk. And they used the immortal mountain Mandara to do this. They wrapped the giant snake, Vasuki, around the mountain and churned the ocean of milk with the giant mountain. But what happened was the mountain began to sink. But Vishnu, as the turtle, supported the mountain so that the churning could continue. So this is a great parable. The Kurma nadi is about here. It's about an inch below where your collarbones meet. And it's worth experimenting with directing your attention to that spot. There's a lot of emotions in the navel chakra, and there's a lot of emotions in the throat chakra. But in this spot, about 1 inch below where the collarbones meet, there is a stillness. There is a stillness. Oh, and by the way, the tortoise avatar of Vishnu is wielding chakras. So perhaps we could think of the Kurma nadi as the center of the channel, which goes from the lower part of the body right up to the top part of the body. The snake Vasuki was being pulled by the gods on the one hand and the demons on the other side. So we've got these conflicting tendencies, these mighty forces at work, all being supported by the tortoise, which is the still center, the still rock. So this is a point we can come back to. We can come back to this point, allowing us the possibility of drinking once again from the nectar of immortality, which is, of course, samadhi. And this corresponds to the Heart Sutra, with harmonious integration centered on the heart. There is the appropriate attitude to understanding of the mind. And again, the heart isn't the heart chakra. It isn't the physical heart. It's the heart that Ramana Maharshi spoke of. It's where we want to be. Spiritually, it's where we want to be. It's samadhi once again, but not simply samadhi that we're striving for. It's samadhi that we're drawn to. It's samadhi that is at the heart of our being. And once there, we have the appropriate attitude to the understanding of the mind. And the mind here is all our thoughts and feelings. It's not simply understanding the mechanics of the mind, but also having the appropriate attitude to the constructions of the mind, heart, dynamic. And we're talking about the emotional heart in that sense. So finally we end up being where we want to be, established in samadhi.